Welcome to the Scarlet and Great Empire on YouTube. Once again, Scarlet and Great with Kiran. Adding
Hey, how
Kiran
you
on.
doing, Corey? It's great to be on. Exciting week for the Buckeyes and all of Buckeye Nation.
Man,
Last week, there was a little bit of angst in my voice. You could probably tell that I was confident in the Buckeyes, but obviously there was some nervous excitement within me.
I think we were all feeling that, to be honest with you. I felt confident. I don't know what it was. I just something in the air I felt confident about. But yeah, most people, including Johnny, who's not here, felt pretty. Yeah, we could do it, but we'll see. And I think you were fairly confident we could do it. You just didn't. You just had to see it because they hadn't shown it this season. And that was the big problem. Is like, for whatever reason, even though I had no proof that they were going to do it, I just felt confident about it. So I'm not going to sit here and claim I knew something because I didn't. It was a feeling I had. But you obviously know things. You're an X and O's guy. You can see things on film. That's why we keep bringing you on the show. It's not for your good looks, I promise.
Yeah, yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, no, it was a great game overall, and I know you wanted to touch base on what went well.
Well,
I know
first give me
everyone.
a just a general feeling you had at watching the game. Like, give me your experience. Give me the Kiran Shanker experience as because you're not just a normal fan. You could see all these things happening as they happen. Now, give me what is your now? I told Johnny when I was watching the game, I was a maniac. What is Kiran Shanker like watching a big game like this and watching us actually to just destroy a really good team?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a bit passionate with my friends. It's behind closed doors. Don't worry, no profanity, not about that. But
Oh,
I
don't
was
listen to
so
him. He swears
excited,
up
I
and
got
down.
a bad headache at the end of the game just from the excitement. I was like, me and my friends were just celebrating. Um, I'm on campus now. I was back in Cincinnati for the game. But looking at the first quarter, I remember you guys touched base on, oh no, they went down and scored. Now it's a 3-and-out. But on that next drive, when Sermon had that touchdown run, after that, I was like, this is what we've been wanting to see from the offensive line all year. Clemson didn't do too much differently than they did on defense, than they've done this season, than they did against us last year. They ran more split field coverage. The number one thing that they did last year to slow us down was okay, let's let Isaiah Simmons play in that back end. He's the best athlete in the front seven and safety room. And they let him play single high and they let the corners kind of play physical, and it slowed the Buckeyes down a little bit. This year they didn't have that luxury. So Ryan Day, you run a quarter scheme against him, you run a split safety scheme against him. He's going to find the one-on-one matchup. There is that first play with Garrett Wilson going down to the 5. It was actually what you call a slot fade. And what's interesting is typically you see teams want to attack a slot fade when they have a nickel on a receiver or a linebacker on a receiver in man-to-man or matching a vertical release. This time, however, it was actually the corner matching up on Garrett Wilson. But Coach Day and the passing coordinators, as the passing, kind of pretty much the passing game coordinator, probably realized that on film, that corner is not in the best position. If that fade comes up the hash, that corner is going to give up some space. He was on the outside playing the deep, almost the deep part of that field. So it was little things like that in the first part of the game that really got the offense going. And then shout out later in the game, Paris, who I played with, got in out left guard, had a pancake. So again, for the offensive line, I actually went against Paris. Like, I was a scout team defensive player for St. Xavier. Scout team meaning not someone who needs to take real game reps on the defense. Instead, you're giving the offense the opposing team's defensive scheme up front. So I was a safety, but I decided to play defensive end a little bit, just to go against my best friend who played right tackle, and then Paris, who played left tackle, just to go against them. And he let up on me. Don't worry. I mean, he probably only pancaked me a couple times if I remember, but that was a lot of fun. But back to the game, on the defensive side of the ball, what stood out to me is a short memory. If you remember, that big play of the first drive was that back shoulder fade to Banks. And Banks was playing over top of that route. He was in the hip pocket, and honestly, just a great throw by Lawrence. Like, that receiver was, pushing hard up the field, and then Lawrence put it on his back shoulder. The receiver didn't really give any hints to Banks that that's where the ball was going. He actually just extended his arm late. I think it's a borderline. You could have called it, you could have not called it. It wasn't the most egregious. He still pushed off a little bit, Cornell Powell. And what the Buckeyes defense did ever since that series was just not let up in the front seven and keep things in front of them. The tackling was great. Shout out to another St. Xavier bomber. Everybody knows his name by now, Justin Hilliard. A friend of mine who's just always been a great leader. He's a lot older than me, but he's always been someone who I met. I actually met him freshman year. He was a freshman year homeroom leader and touched base with him last year a little bit. We have a lot of mutual friends, and everyone's just proud. I mean, it's just what he's deserved. And we've talked about this on the last podcast. He's really just playing at an unbelievable level. Instincts, athleticism, it's all there. People in the NFL are now talking about it on Twitter. Him and Werner really just had a great game. I know you and Johnny touched base on it earlier this week, how Werner did a good job blitzing, letting up, not getting any penalties. There was one play, like ETN must be sore. ETN's a good pass pro, but he was going against Hilliard and Werner a couple times where you could just tell it was a tough matchup for him to go against two. Like Werner's like what 242, Hilliard 230 plus or whatever. That's tough, to try to defend that. And then it was also the fact that the front four was winning. But key to the game, we'll talk on the ends. But first, let's talk about Haskell and Togiai. We've all talked about Haskell being that explosive wrecking ball, that penetrator, that strong guy who just has all the tools in the box to be a threat in the passing game and also as a run stopper. But Togiai really showed what he's good at. I didn't get to watch a lot of Cam Hayward when I was 9 years old, but I think he has that similar level of impact as a guy who lines up at the 1 and 3 tech, meaning he either lines up in the A gap right outside the center or right outside of the guard. He can line up on the guard too. And he can do block destruction where he can hold up blocks, free up lanes for a linebacker, or he can really just do penetration. There was one rep that stood out to me where Lawrence was keeping the ball and going attacking the C gap. And Togiai, the guy reaches in front of him, the guard reaches in front of him, thinks he has a good angle. So Togiai, knowing that he's got the leverage disadvantage here, do what you have to do to just get into the backfield. So he held up, the guard couldn't get too much move on him and quickly reset on the backside of that block and came underneath it to make the tackle. So it takes a lot of agility and you could say in the moment technique to where he was able to square up the guard who was trying to cut him off and then come underneath it. So stack, shed underneath, and make the play. That's just one play that stood out to me. And I want to hear your thoughts too about how this defensive line performed because Smith and Cooper took most of the reps. I know JJB got in too. Harrison was unavailable, sadly, but we expect him to be back on Monday. But those guys really, really did a good job of getting an impact pass rush on these offensive tackles. Cooper, great speed rushes all day. Tyreek, these are guys who have every tool in the toolbox as a power rusher, as inside counter, so coming inside of the tackle after setting them up outside. And they have explosive capabilities to really just push that pocket, force quarterbacks to step up into the interior pressure. So that's what stood out to me. If you had any other thoughts that we need to touch base on.
Well, I mean, it's obviously you just wow. Okay, that's a lot to digest for people right there. But um, basically, on offense, first I noticed that it's just this is. Let me ask you something. Okay, this is a question Mike Golick brought up. Mike Golick Jr. Sorry, not the actual Mike Golick. He maintained that it looks like from watching the tape of this year to Clemson, Ryan Day may have been going pretty vanilla all year just to wait for a Clemson or a Bama. Because he knows, and look, he's not going to say this, but we're going to say it. Ohio State has 3 touchdowns better than anybody in the Big Ten talent-wise. They out-recruit everybody by a mile. Okay, they're always in that upper echelon of Alabama, Georgia, Clemson in recruiting. In fact, the last few years, the top 4 recruiters are Georgia 1, Bama 2, Ohio State 3, Clemson 4. Going back to Georgia, nobody does less with more than anybody on that. I mean, that program, but that being said, did you see anything from watching all year? Did you see anything that we were doing that was just different? Like that because Clemson's defense legitimately looked like shocked at times, surprised. Even Skalski kind of looked confused at times, and that is not a. He's been around the block, you know. He's seen things. Um, Now he still needs to learn to pick his head up when he tackles, but still, that's neither here nor there. That guy has seen some things as a middle linebacker for Clemson, but he looked confused at times. Did Ryan Day put in any new wrinkles that that we just didn't see all year that you noticed?
Yeah, I think in the red zone, you could call it the green zone, which is past the 30-yard line in the Clemson territory. Um, Really, at least in my understanding, there must have been a consensus that, hey, um, there are going to be some opportunities in the middle of the field, and we should get Ruckert involved. We should get Farrell involved. There's going to be one-on-one matchups. It's going to be a mismatch. Let's get the ball out to them. Everyone knows that one play, the misdirection play, where Rucker's just coming in as a blocker, and then that linebacker is supposed to carry him doesn't see him, obviously, so he bails out to the middle of the field to protect against that one post route that Olave was running. So the corner follows the post, the safety in the middle of the field's coming up on that post, and the linebacker's coming up on the post. Someone is going to be wide open, which was Ruckert on the opposite side of the field. And then the two other tight end touchdowns where Farrell was one-on-one with the corner, and it was almost just like he was grabbing a rebound. He didn't have to leave his feet. A great throw by Fields, just knowing, hey, let me attack this leverage here. And then Farrell was able to stretch out and make that play. And then one of the plays of the game where Rucker gets immediate separation, but it's such a tight window, and Fields just fires it in there. I just think in the game plan, there was definitely an opportunity they saw to exploit the fact that they couldn't match up with the tight end. And we're being real. I was confident that the Buckeyes would have experience. I mean, excuse me, well, they have experience, but they would have success passing the football. And it didn't really take any genius to figure out why that was. I mean, even
Oh,
unless
don't be
you have
modest.
the Ohio State secondary from last year, there's really nothing you can do to completely shut down an Ohio State passing attack. Darian Kendrick was their blue chip guy, and I mean, honestly, it's not like he played the worst game ever, but it's like when you have guys like Olave. I mean, the thing I loved is just the fact that since the O-line was playing so well, he said, okay, let's hit him in the jugular. That one play where Olave was running free almost, it seemed like, that was a great play design. And it's a play design that can really, really work if you have a quarterback that can make the throw and you have an offensive line that can pass protect. You got those two, it's a jugular hitter right there because really there's a small margin for error. He threw it 60 yards down the field for this Olave touchdown. He's running the post. So the corner is actually thinking, okay, I can't let him break on this stop route. I can't let him get straight vertical down the field. I should have safety help. The safety gets held up a little bit by what's in front of him because if there's a
It's
crosser
Turner.
coming, that safety's got to pull up. So it was just a play that you see from a lot of schools, but Ohio State, the Buckeyes called it at the right moment with the right execution in a phenomenal throw, 6 yards downfield. There's only about a 3-yard margin for error. And I like how Fields, I mean, I'm not sure if he meant to do this, didn't throw him exactly in stride because that's a little bit of a harder catch for Olave, but he put it right on him so that Olave didn't have to slow down, but he could just be there and catch the ball and concentrate on catching the ball for a touchdown. But it was those plays, the Jameson Williams touchdown was similar to where we realized, okay, they may be running split field coverage, but it's still man on man when we run these concepts. It's still my dog, this cat against this cat, who's going to win? And they trusted their guys. The Buckeyes trusted Olave, Wilson, Williams, Ruckert. Ruckert was a little bit more play design and him just being a beast after the catch. And then Olave and Wilson were just, really squaring up against the guys they were going against. And then the run game, I mean, we already talked a lot about this passing game, but it's pretty simple that the offensive line, Clemson was slanting a lot, and that didn't really impact the way the Buckeyes were able to execute up front. There wasn't a ton of confusion there. Matt Jones played well. We already talked about my friend Paris, and we talked about you guys talked earlier on this show about how Nick Petit, great guy, very intelligent guy. I talked to just a couple times at school, and then Thayer Mumford, who's actually from Cincinnati, played for LaSalle for his first few years of high school. So it's a guy I watched in high school, and their development has just been great. I mean, Mumford played hurt last year, and now he's playing like one of the best tackles in the Big Ten, if not in the nation, at left tackle. And now it's probably time to get into Alabama, because I think Buckeye fans have watched the highlights. They've seen what I'm seeing, in that this team is one of the best teams that we've ever seen at Ohio State. Sure, it's only been 7 games, but sometimes it only takes one game to see that this is a team that can square up against an Alabama.
Well, we've explained to us what we did a little differently in the offensive system, and you went above and beyond with that. In fact, and we Fields got a redemption game after Northwestern. Obviously, many of us were questioning whether or not Fields could even go pro after that Northwestern game. But after this game against Clemson, nobody's really questioning it at the moment. And it's a little unfair to him because, I mean, it's like Lawrence hasn't always been perfect either, but yet nobody really questions whether or not he's ready for the NFL. And Fields, he didn't totally deserve some of the criticism, but he had a rough game against Northwestern. There's no other way to put it. But he obviously, he has in the movie Dumb and Dumber and totally redeemed himself. So defensively though was a little interesting, because first of all, front seven was just taking turns hitting Lawrence. He just did not have a clean pocket most of the game. What did we do? The defense I thought was good enough. It wasn't like stifling great, but it was good enough. It didn't start out great, but eventually they kind of caught on and caught up with. I mean, now granted, Tony Elliott being out has to help the defense look a little bit better than what it would, because when you get your primary play caller gone, the tendencies. I mean, it could also work as a disadvantage for Ohio State because you don't know the tendencies of the next guy up calling the plays. But still, last year we held them to 29 with a really good, really stifling top 5 type defense. This year we have a top 30 defense. I think it's 31st actually. I might be wrong about that. And we held them to 28, and one of those was kind of a garbage touchdown. In fact, what did we do this year? What does Coombs do? Did Coombs change anything? Is there any wrinkles we've added that actually might have helped our cause on Friday?
Yeah, from my understanding, unfortunately, I didn't have like the entire game to watch, so I'm basing it off of my memory. But they didn't go nickel. Like last year, the Buckeyes would be 4-3, forward lineman, 3 linebacker, obviously. But then we'd have that slot corner, Wade in is kind of our guy, right? Who could blitz and who could do everything. And then this year, it's like it was Browning first years, and it was pretty much Hilliard the rest of the game. And that made it hard to run the ball. You want to get to the perimeter, good luck with blocking Hilliard on the perimeter. You want to run it inside, good luck with Togiai.
I've honestly never seen a linebacker like Hilliard get off blocks the way he's getting off blocks right now. It's crazy. They almost can't even get a hand on him.
It's experience, but it's more an experience. I mean, that's what he did in high school too. I mean, I've talked about it before. When he played, I was a freshman, he was a senior, and when he was a junior too, is really just taking the country by storm with all the recruiting and committing to Ohio State. There was a reason for it. Coach Specht, my high school head coach, I talked about it with him sophomore year. I was just like asking him some questions about what he could do. That was just what he thought he could do. And Coach Speck just said he was such a game wrecker that we just kept him at the right outside linebacker spot. And teams would just say, all right, we're going to keep a tight end. We're going to keep a back. And then to help the left tackle, whoever it is, or the left guard, and they just keyed on him. And then our left outside linebacker had like 15, probably about 9 to 12 sacks his senior year. And then they were double teaming Justin. He still got 7 sacks. And we played in arguably the toughest conference in the country. So just a little tidbit. I know I keep dropping those, but about high school. But I know people really just want to hear about what the Buckeyes did. And honestly, it was still that 3 deep scheme. It was still very similar to what they'd done all year. I didn't think there was any reason to really completely revamp anything. You talked about press. They ran some press in certain parts of the field with Wade.
Yeah, yeah,
Banks
that was
had a
obvious.
great game. I think another difference was Banks put it on towards the end of the game. I just also think that Clemson's receivers, although solid, didn't scare that secondary too much. They played very confident. They knew that they could match up well.
Well, it's going to be a different story against Alabama, that's for sure.
And we'll get to that. We'll get to that.
Yeah, I
And
know. I'm just saying it.
no, absolutely. I know you're absolutely right in saying that it's a completely different ball game against Bama, but the keys will remain the same in the secondary and in the front seven. Um, I know some people on Twitter are very smart people. You talk about Ross. Ross was saying, maybe we should go nickel. Maybe the Buckeyes should go nickel and really have more athletic personnel. And then we saw what Hilliard could do. It's like, oh, maybe we don't need to go nickel because Hilliard can do some coverage and blitz.
And
And
he
then
was in the
Werner,
slot a few times.
yeah, and then Werner was also playing great football. So it's like, let's keep the linebacker because with the three linebackers, it becomes hard to run because it's almost like they're +1 against the run.
Mhm.
When teams like Clemson, I mean, Alabama runs more tight ends in the game and they'll mix it up. But yeah, defensively, they did a lot of great things. And I'm sorry, I actually completely forgot to talk about this on offense. I was so caught up in the tight ends and in the little bit of the deep passing, but a lot of people were talking about this on Twitter. I noticed it. I didn't actually know what it was called, but they call it formation in the boundary or FIB, whatever you want to call it, which is where you have your passing strength a bunch set to the boundary of the field. And essentially, that allows the Buckeyes offense to see what the defense is going to particularly react to
Mhm.
that formation and allows them it can help in the run game to the wide side of the field. It helps them get numbers, and it helps them find mismatches too. But back to the defense, those are things that Alabama's going to do too. Alabama runs formation in the boundary a lot. They run it's almost hard what to call the personnel because they'll have a tight end as like a wing, as a sniffer, and then they'll have a tight end on the ball to the same side of the field, and they'll motion that backside tight end. Now it's an even set, balanced set. And no, the hop into Alabama, what they're going to do differently is what I noticed about Alabama watching them is they take the easy and they make it so easy for themselves. And then when they're comfortable, it's like, okay, Mac Jones can make a throw. I mean, no, talking about Mac Jones, since we're just hopping into Bama, he's a player who may not be that top 5, top 10 quarterback in the draft, but he's proven that he can be a spot starter in the NFL, maybe even more because he's got a solid arm. Just like Trask from Florida. It's not like this guy's going to be like Fields chucking it 60 yards down the field in stride, but he can make some deep passes, but he also is very routine and he can attack the intermediate part of the field. And it's because with a running back like Najee Harris,
Mm.
it
You
really
mean Michigan running back Najee Harris?
that was he was a 2017 grad. Yeah. Yeah, we all remember that.
He was the number one running back in the nation when he came out of high
He
school.
was actually, I think, I can't remember if he was an athlete or a back, but he was the number
No, he was
3
running back.
player.
He was number one running back. Yeah.
That's right. Number 3 player in the nation.
Yeah, he was up there, and then Michigan thought they had him, and all of a sudden he shows up at Alabama.
Made the right decision, but
Well,
anyway.
yeah, obviously, yeah. We
Anyway.
tried like crazy to recruit him. He just wasn't having it.
Yeah, no, it's tough to recruit against Bama. It's tough.
Yeah.
The Buckeyes are able to win battles. They're able to win battles. Jordan battle, right? But starting with the offense, right? So with the offensive line, we can talk about them because that's the key to their success. Really, Emil Ekiyor is their left guard, and I just want to say he was actually teammates with Pete Werner because St. X played against Indianapolis Cathedral High School every single year. And I played against Emil junior and senior year, so I got to watch a lot of film on him in high school. And the thing that always stood out to me is he may not be the longest guard, but he packs a punch. I think he's about 6'3 and a half, 6'3, probably about 315 pounds. Dude can move pretty well. He packs a punch. He's not a guy who's easy to power rush against. He's got explosive hands. That's just a tidbit from him, but the entire offensive line, Deontay Brown's been filling in at center after the injury to their starter, 69, I forget his name.
Dickinson, I think.
Yeah, he was a phenomenal center. Their offensive line is the best that the Buckeyes have seen all year. It's better than Clemson. I know Clemson was a solid
I
O-line.
said it in a podcast previewing Clemson. I felt they had an above average to good offensive line, nothing special, and it proved to be true.
Yeah, and the Buckeyes took advantage. The defensive line now has to capitalize on these one-on-one matchups. And
Well, let's talk about the defensive line. We might be without Tommy Togiai and Tyreek Smith, though. That's the rumor. It's not official. For those who are watching this, it is not official. That's the rumor. Look, I think Smith right now is the best defensive end on the roster, but Cooper's not far behind because Cooper's really, really good. But again, Harrison has promise, and I think he can do anything Smith can do. He just hasn't done it yet. And Friday's a solid rotational player, and it looks like those two are going to be back. And you got Javonte Baptiste is a solid pass rusher, situational player. I don't want to lose Smith, but I feel like he's maybe more, I don't want to say replaceable, but next man up-ish, behind him than what Togiai just means it seems like a huge loss. Like, I mean, you got Teron Vincent, 5-star guy, number one defense tackle in the country when he came out. I mean, he's not necessarily a nose like Togiai is, but he's going to have to fill that void, I would guess. Antoine Jackson, who's a solid rotational player. He's not great, but and then you got Jerron Cage, who's a good, I think actually shown good when he does play. Let me ask you something. If we have to replace those two, and from what I understand, by the way, I'm also hearing it could also be a linebacker and a DB as well. I haven't got any names, but let's just hope it's not Hilliard. I don't think it is.
Interviewing today, wasn't he, Justin?
Oh yeah, if he was interviewing today, he's playing.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we know Garrett's playing at least too, Haskell Garrett. So thank God. If we lose Togiai and Smith, I've said this, and maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong. It makes the matchup tougher, but it's still winnable. I mean, there's Buckeye fans literally think we lose those two, we might as well just not even go to Florida. So what's your take on that?
I say have some confidence in this roster. It's been such a interesting and difficult year for this team, for every team in the nation. But like you said, Teron Vincent is going to be a guy who's going to have to fill in at that 3-tech. Because Togiai and Haskell, they'll interchange. They like Togiai probably more at that one spot just because how big and hard to move.
How stocky and strong he is. Yeah.
Haskell is hard to move too. And he's just got so many reps that they'll probably kick him into the 1-tech if Togiai does happen to be out, if we're assuming that's true. It stinks that such an impact player, but next man up, I'm very optimistic. That Bama offense.
You're optimistic we have the talent to fill in for a game, right? I mean, even a game as big as this one and as tough as Alabama, because obviously it's going to be the best team we played all year, best offense we played all year, and they got so many weapons that can burn you, plus an offensive line it's really good, and you don't want to lose a guy like Togiai who's been an immovable object all year. But if you have to play without him, you have to play without him. You don't postpone a game for a couple of weeks to try to get him. It's just next man up type of thing. I tweeted out. I mean, I said, it's tough. I hate it. I'd rather have them than not have them, of course. But I think we have a sufficient amount of talent to fill in for now. And actually, I think, be honest with you, these are the types of games where you find out what you have, and it's surprising sometimes. Like, wow, that kid's good. Why hasn't he been playing more? You start to ask yourself these questions. Like Matt Jones just filled in for Harry Miller in the Clemson game. Nobody really knew what we had in Matt Jones for sure. Guy played a great game. Paris Johnson filled in at left guard at times. And like you said, nobody we figure he's going to be good, but you don't know until they get on the field, right? What's he do? He just puts somebody on the ground. I mean, he looks great. Sometimes this happens where all of a sudden Jerron Cage gets some extended playing time because we need that big guy in the middle, and he's the biggest of them all. Or Teron Vincent, I think, is going to actually experience a Haskell Garrett-like leap next year. So maybe it just starts now. Maybe we jumpstart that leap right now. Maybe these guys, because you know what happens sometimes is when these guys, like, okay, when JT went down and Braxton was already down in about 14, everybody around Cardale picked up their game. So it's almost as if, okay, we lost a couple of key players. We all have to step up. We all have to pick up our game now. This is what Ohio State preaches. Hey, next man up. This is your opportunity to shine in front of the nation right now. Don't blow it. I agree with you. I'm confident that some of these guys, there's going to be a couple of guys are going to show up. Like Harrison might even have his coming out party, and they're going to show up and say, you know what, it's my game. It's my time to shine. I'm going to show why I was a highly touted recruit. I know I'm going to show why I play big boy football at Ohio State. And I think people need to have some faith in that. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, and what a chance for them to prove themselves.
Hmm.
Alex Leatherwood is at left tackle.
Good player.
He is. I don't want to compare him to Carmen because I think Leatherwood's probably an
A little
overall,
quicker.
yeah, a little bit more explosive as a
What? Hey,
tackle.
what was it? Was it pretty sweet watching Tyreek Smith beat Carmen for a sack?
Yeah, no, I went against. I didn't. Okay, my friends on the football team at X St. Xavier went against Carmen for 2 years in a row. One of my friends was on the scout team with me, and then moved up to a starting position due to injury. Oh, sounds familiar, but we're not
Hmm.
playing Carmen. But he actually had a sack on him. Um, okay, unrelated, but I think it at least parallels what's going to happen. Harrison is one of the most athletic kids on the roster, and Leatherwood. I mean, both of the tackles played pretty well against Florida in their athletic defensive line, but
Florida's defense is not good though.
yeah, no, Florida's line, like they got some athletes, but it's not as good as the Buckeyes defensive line. No one's gonna debate us or
I
anyone on
think our
that.
front seven is nearly as good as any in the nation, to be honest with you. I mean,
They
so our
figured it out.
secondary leaves a lot to be desired at times. Maybe not even our secondary, just coverage schemes at times leave a lot to be desired. But front seven gets pressure. They stop the run. There's not a whole lot more you can ask for.
Yeah, that offensive line for Bama's good. It's gonna be a great challenge to see. As terms of edge rushing, it's probably just not gonna be successful. It's gonna have to come from interior pressure, from coverage sacks, from blitzing, and it's not that I doubt Cooper and um, whether it's Smith and everyone else. I just think you see it in the NFL a lot. The best defensive linemen, they're not getting pressure. They get pressure maybe 30, 40% of stuff, which is still insane.
Well, we're going to have to blitz, is what you're saying.
Yeah, because these tackles they're really, really good. I mean, Neal is only a sophomore, he's their right tackle. You could get an explosive get off and work your way against the edge. You know, I'm no defensive line coach, but one thing you can do is really come up head on and see how the offensive tackle reacts and then work your rush that angle. Mac Jones doesn't like to run a lot. So it pretty much allows the defensive ends to just do whatever they want to get pressure, which is great. And then onto the receiving core. I think the two biggest names in the last few weeks are Jaleel Billingsley. I know it's funny, right? I mentioned him before Devonta. Everyone knows Devonta Smith, but I think Billingsley's quite the athlete. They play him a lot when they go two tight ends, three tight ends. They'll move him into
Hmm.
the slot too. He can block when they want to screen Devonta. Devonta Smith is a Heisman winner at receiver. That's all you really need to know. We're not
He
going to
can
talk
do
about
everything.
he can do anything you need him to do because of his experience, his refinement, his skill, his
Hmm.
athletic ability is really good. He's probably a 4-4 guy that plays every bit as fast as that. True vertical threat. Not only that, he has just a variety of different things he can do at the line of scrimmage that he does to create separation, that he does at the catch point. I mean, he can probably jump up 40 inches in the air, pluck balls out of the air. So how do the Buckeyes slow that down? It's interesting. The Buckeyes typically just run against that. They'll go soft coverage, keep it in front of them. I think that's the strategy. Keep it in front of them. I know how cliche it sounds. Oh, bend but don't break. I mean, that's just a strategy to win football against arguably the best offense in college football is bend but don't break. So really, it would be getting some key stops and
A
limiting
turnover here and there would be nice.
Billingsley. Yeah, yeah. What they do specifically is, like I said, they take the easy, they take what they can get, they establish the run game, but they do a lot of like things in space where there's
Hmm.
one play against Florida where Najee Harris runs on the outside, kind of stops, he's a little bit open, he bolts inside. Like it's just almost scripted at that point where they just have that chemistry. Like Najee Harris is a threat in the pass game, just like ETN. A little bit different. Maybe a low 4-5 guy versus a 4-3 guy, but he plays fast and he's a
Well,
low.
he's definitely a better in between the tackles runner than Etienne is. So that's not debatable. I'll tell you what. I agree with you. You know more than I do. Obviously, I say it all the time, but I do agree. I was going to say the same thing. It's like we're probably going to play a lot of, give up some short yardage here and there, and not just make sure they don't get over the top on us and don't allow a big play because they do a lot of RPOs as well, and the RPO is dangerous for them with the combination of Smith and Harris. And Jones makes good, quick decisions with the ball. He can light you up on the slants. We lay off the receiver quite a bit. I just wonder if Jones has the experience of, okay, they're playing cover three, whatever, they're laying off, and then they go to RPO, and then we've been susceptible to that for years, the RPO, because our linebackers don't always get back the way they should. And with the threat of Harris, you got to believe the linebacker, and with maybe even possibly some defensive linemen out, like a Togi or a Smith, instead of being able to rely on what's in front of you, I got to imagine linebackers are going to feel like they need to hit that gap quickly to stop Harris. Opens up a lot of possibilities for those quick slants and whatnot. How do you combat something like that with what you have? I mean, we have the experience to do it, but do we have necessarily the defensive discipline to do it?
Yeah, might take some on second down, maybe go nickel. I think the linebackers are playing so well. You start with just leaving them on the field, except for like third and long,
Hmm.
because we know that's like a key. We keep talking about Hilliard and Werner, but those guys like in the RPO games, they're so smart that they could try to force Mac Jones to make a bad decision, and they can almost play with that. But it's gonna be tough because this Alabama offense with Sarkisian, they've done a lot of things with
That's
misdirect.
Texas coach Sarkisian to you.
Yeah, he's been good at you know using play action too, and getting guys to different levels of the field. And like I said, they take the easy and then they can get the hard. The vertical threat is going to be tough. You know, giving up big plays is going to be tough. But Mattinson and Combs are going to be able to really just have to work with the talent that they have. And that's a good thing because there's so much talent on this defense. And the fundamentals are going to have to be the one thing I noticed in Clemson was the fundamentals were good. Weren't a ton of missed tackles. Uh,
Yeah, they did a great job with especially open field tackling, especially with guys like Etienne, who Ransom actually saved a big play on Etienne on a screen pass. It looked like he was finally getting breaking free a little bit, and Ransom takes him down. We make those little plays that keep plays from going eight. They stay at 8 yards rather than become 25 yards. That's what wins you a ball game. So you're right. Keep everything in front of you and make sure you're tackling correctly and
it'd be
hitting
nice
that
to
first
see some
tackle.
turnovers too. I know Florida had a couple. Um,
It's
because
going to
Mike
be
Williams,
tough. Yeah.
he's an aggressive quarterback, and there are just some weird things that happened in that 40 game. But really, being able to capitalize on those opportunities, um, I think Proctor and Ransom have played well. It's interesting because Ramson is a freshman. We're just not sure what he is, other than he's a good player right now. We don't know if he can play that post safety. I think it's
I,
easier to play
they
the low safety, but Proctor is so good at playing as a low safety or as a
Well,
field
right now
stop.
they got Proctor's at single high at the moment, and I don't
Yeah,
blame
he's
them. I
got
mean,
enough range though. He's got
he has the range. He's got to learn to catch the freaking ball, but yeah, he's got range.
it
Like
happens. Hey, as a former DB, you're so focused on so much that when the ball comes your way, it's like, oh,
I know.
you know
Look,
what I'm saying?
I love Proctor. I love his
Yeah,
intensity. I love his passion. I'm just picking on him. He's been playing great. He's only going to get better. And look, it's like that interception felt like it could have just stopped, ended the game right there. And I was like, oh dang it, and he's done it two weeks in a row. So I'm not trying to pick on him. I actually like Proctor. Ransom's a nice, pleasant surprise as that low safety right now. And he's got range too. By the way, he's got good speed. So and he's a sure tackler as a freshman. You don't see that way too freaking often in the secondary, especially. So he's been a pleasant surprise. Hickman coming off an injury. I would like to get Hickman back in the rotation there because he's got that intensity, aggression, and passion. He can come from the high safety position into the box quickly at a good angle, make tackles. I mean, just keep adding that depth. I mean, safety depth next year is probably going to be pretty good. Um, Hooker, I don't even know if he's playing right now or not. Johnny was kind of saying he was down on the depth chart. I'm not sure if he's just got COVID or he's down on the depth chart. I don't know. But I will say that I'm gonna one more thing to address Bama and Ohio State wise, because we're gonna do another preview. Obviously, we might just get you on here with Johnny and just have a roundtable discussion. Maybe even bring Dylan on just to get a couple of experts here. Uh,
yeah. We can quickly. I mean, I had some thoughts on the defense. Yeah,
Well, people are worried about Wade versus Devonta Smith.
yeah, yeah.
So you go ahead. You sound off on that. Good or bad, just tell us the truth.
I think Wade was just still getting used to press technique. I mean, in the slot, he didn't have to play too much press last year. He was
True.
mainly like playing some zone and some man, and he was so good at it. Like when he was in zone, he could come up, explode, make tackles, and that's what he's good at. So I say, okay, if he still needs to get comfortable playing press, then allow him to play 5 yards off. I forget exactly what the technique's called, half turn maybe. We don't run a lot of half turn. We run kind of like a hybrid between half turn and bail, where facing the quarterback shuffle a little bit, and then there's pure half turn where you're pretty much parallel to the sideline almost, and it allows you to kind of break on anything underneath. And he's really good at breaking on the underneath stuff, and that way, it's like Devontae gets 8 yards, 10 yards maybe, and then really on that 3rd and 6, or if they're able to force that, then press him, and because it's more predictable. You have you've seen on film what Devontae's most likely going to do in that situation. I know teams like Alabama actually bracket players, but I don't see the Buckeyes really bracketing a whole lot. Maybe just running some too deep.
I don't know
And
who you bracket, man. They got so many weapons. How do you bracket somebody? Did you try to take Smith away? Then you get Billings.
a
So
lot of times in bracket, it's like as soon as that player commits one way, then the other player who it's let's just say it's a safety slot corner.
and
If
remember,
that player
Waddle's going to be back more than likely.
if that player comes inside, yeah, yeah, no, about Waddle. I mean, we'll pray for his recovery. I mean, it would be great to see him play, for his sake, obviously.
Yeah, I'm fine with him playing. It's if he's a Bama receiver, you don't want anybody injured, obviously, and I'm serious. I mean, I'm fine with him playing. It's like hey, you got to beat the best to be the best, right? So if you want to be champions, go beat them. I wish we were fully healthy right now, but I'm still going to wish that for Alabama too. I hope Waddle can play.
Yeah, and yeah, so I think just letting Wade do what he's comfortable in. He had that rep against Cornell Powell at the end of the game, and honestly, like Pat Surtain's gonna be a top 10 pick. And you saw what Trevon Grimes did. I mean, actually, I
Yeah.
just saw it because I was hanging out with friends that night and wasn't focused on the game, but I was rewatching it. And Grimes was going up the sideline. Surtain was bailing out. Just a really good throw by Trask. I mean, it wasn't the most perfect throw, but Grimes just got up and got it. So, like, as a corner, everyone sees you're bad. Everyone sees you're bad.
Hmm.
And as a corner, short memory, do what you're good at, forget and keep playing. Keep playing. Live to fight another day all the time. Touching real quick on this Alabama defense,
Okay.
they like to run some odd fronts and they'll run some even fronts, which means, on the early downs, they'll have the center covered by a nose guard and then two defensive tackles, ends, whatever you want to call them, over the tackles. And then on passing downs, they like to have those two end tackles playing outside the guard. And they'll have a rush backer, typically away from the passing strength, meaning typically the boundary. And he'll be playing over as a pass rusher on the offensive tackle. However, they've been experimenting. They've been doing this for years now. It's called a mint and tight front. And a mint front is similar to what Brent Venables did against the Buckeyes in 2019 that was able to stifle them a little bit in the run game. And it's almost like having a very light box, but having like a lot of athletes on the field and allowing players to play where they're comfortable. So the mid front, you have that odd front, like I said, with the center covered, but they take a linebacker out and they put in a base. It's a base nickel, so their star is what they call him.
Hmm.
Typically, just a fast corner who can blitz and is aggressive. Is their star guy. He's typically not a. He's probably just a fast safety, you could call him. And they'll have their rush defensive end. I believe it's number 31, who's Will Anderson, the freshman. He'll be the guy who's going to be that designated pass rusher. Oh, but going on to what they do well, it's a defense that has a lot of talent. It's just in today's game of football, if a team like Florida was able to say, "All right, this is what you're going to do. We're going to beat you," Trask made some good throws. Receivers made some plays. Ohio State's going to have the same mentality. Like, okay, we see what you're doing on film. Let's see what you did against Florida. Let's see what you might do differently. Maybe you go split safeties. So, Saban on passing downs, like he'll like to go split safety sometimes to give his corners help. But I think he tries a lot of trust in his corners. But we're probably going to see mainly one safety deep because Battle can play single high, but man, when he's playing closer to the box, covering in the slot tight ends, what a player he is as a freshman. And then their other safety, he's a veteran. His name's Daniel Wright. He's a fourth year player. He's been solid too. I don't think he's the best free safety they've ever had, but he might prove me wrong. I hope not. And with those two safeties, they do a lot what they do similarly. You could call it a pattern match scheme, right? Where it's a mix of man and zone principles based on what the offense is doing. It's a reactionary defense. Oh, receivers doing this, I'm doing this, right? So I expect Day to be able to see, okay, well, this is what he's going to be doing based on this. So let's attack him like this. Just like we did against Clemson. Oh, safety's going to be taking this guy down the field. Okay, well, let's see him try to do it. Let's see him do it. That's what you say he's going to do, right? So it's going to be the same thing against Bama. Oh, your corner's going to match up against this vertical route as a half-turn player. All right, let's see him stop a back shoulder pass, Garrett Wilson. If we line him up on the outside, we could do that against Josh Jobe. Or your star player is going to have to cover the slot. Like all these different things that they're going to ask their defense to do, Ryan Day is going to be able to stress. Now, on the run game, we'll finish up with the run game. We're already at 46 minutes here. I think the key is to get a hat-on hat and continue to just be able to have good fundamentals as an offensive line. Play with that aggressiveness. I mean, the first play of the game was a half-yard gain. Who would have thought that the Buckeyes would rush for 190 yards, right?
More than that, actually. Yeah.
More than that. Okay. My guesstimation was wrong.
That's Sermon alone. Sermon alone was 193.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of. And let's hope that he can get to that against Bama. It's gonna be tough.
I don't expect that, but I do expect him to break some for sure.
Yeah, there's only so much you can do. I mean, when they run very similar types of plays, you might see Fields keep it a little bit more. You might see some different wrinkles with different motions, and the blocking schemes are going to stay similar. They're not going to revamp it just for a great team like Alabama. So what's our expectation, right? They're going to be able to put up points, and they're going to stress the players on the field in the secondary with the receivers that the Buckeyes have. So overall, if they can get 4 to 5 yards a carry, continue to get some chunk plays in the passing game, Fields is on point right now. He's got that confidence. He's got that aggressive swagger to his game again. He's a tough guy. He's really a guy who works super hard every single day of the year, and he showed it against Clemson. So I'm going to go ahead and give a score prediction here. I'm going to give the team, you know what? If it ain't broke, don't fix it, even though it was wrong. I think 34-31 Buckeyes. I think you'll probably see it similarly, but like I said, I think this is going to be a close game that the Buckeyes can win.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not giving a score prediction just yet. I'll probably do that later in the week, but I'm leaning in that 42-38 type of range right now. I just don't think either defense is going to be extremely successful in stopping them. I mean, I think this offense is better than Clemson's, and but I think their defense is definitely susceptible to a great pass game for sure, and I think that'll open up opportunities for Sermon because I do think, like you said, Ryan Day knows how to stress that middle of the field quite a bit. And I think Ryan Day, I'll tell you, to me, he's the greatest offensive mind in college football right now. And I think it's kind of funny that Golick Jr. is kind of commenting on like he just goes vanilla until it counts, until it really matters, or he changes some things up. I don't know how true that is. It's just interesting.
I think my take, I forgot to tell you, is like when you're playing Rutgers, why not just work on the basics?
Yeah, well, yeah, it's kind of like
amazing at that.
Zach
right?
Smith kind of chided me for this.
Also for the wrong reasons. Like he's not doing it specifically. Oh, we might play Clemson this year, so let me be vanilla. It's
I think they had an idea they were going to play Clemson.
I mean, they might have had the idea, but it's like, oh, we're going to be in the playoffs in the Big Ten championship. Let's hold everything back. I think we're good at this. We don't have to change much in our game plan. Let's be good at it.
Yeah, you got to have you got to have a bread and butter base, obviously. But Zach Smith chided me for this. I actually said that we treat the Rutgers game kind of like a preseason game. I felt we did. Because I think we know we're so much more talented than they are. We could run rush shit over them. They're not really a threat to beat us. Even if we win ugly, who cares? But uh, I mean, I know Day said he was disappointed in the second half. But anyway, we're in 50 minutes in now. So, Kieran, we'll probably bring back on either before the Alabama game or after, or right after, but maybe even for our pregame show this coming up Monday. But anyway, Kieran, you said 34-31. Hey, I respect it. Nobody expected what we saw against Clemson, so we can't really blame you for that, obviously. Tell them where they can find you, Kieran, on Twitter.
Yeah, my Twitter handle is _Kiran, Kiran, Shanker, SHANKER _.
I'll put it in the description,
And
of course.
sorry, what did you say?
I'll put it in the description, of course.
Oh, put it in the description. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thanks again for having me on. Like I said, if there are any football minds listening to this, I'm still learning a lot about the game. So correct me if I'm wrong about anything, but if there's anything that stood out to you guys, hit me in the DMs. I love talking to people about.
Or you can leave a comment under this
Leave a
video.
comment, do whatever you need to do. But thanks again for everyone for listening, and it's an exciting week here in Columbus. I'm actually on Lane Avenue here, just north of the stadium. I'm east of High Street. Excuse me, east of High Street. Great place to be. Everyone here is so excited.
Oh, yeah, I can't wait for this game. Anyway, guys, as always, goodbye, God bless, and go Bucks!